The unexpected alliance. The ceiling was leaking again, rhythmic droplets pinging against Devon Reeves' forehead like an irritating alarm clock. He opened one bloodshot eye and stared at the grimy metal above him, wondering, not for the first time, how his life had come to this. The cramped quarters of his ship, the Wanderer, reeked of engine oil and the cheap synthetic whiskey he'd fallen asleep clutching. 5 years ago, he'd been Lieutenant Commander Reeves, decorated pilot of the Federation's elite Starfire squadron. Now he was just another smuggler scraping by in the lawless frontier sectors, hauling contraband between forgotten outposts and trying to outrun his memories. The ship's console chimed, a soft alert that meant they were approaching Outpost Kilo 9, a ramshackle trading hub grafted onto an asteroid at the edge of contested space. Devon swung his legs over the side of his bunk, wincing at the familiar ache in his left knee, a souvenir from the Battle of Vega Prime, where everything had gone to hell. Status report, he mumbled, his voice still thick with sleep. Approaching Kilo 9. Docking clearance requested. No patrol activity detected, responded the ship's AI in its perpetually bored tone. Devon had named it Morgan, after his academy instructor who had possessed the same judgy, disinterested demeanor. Any messages? 1. From Riker. Payment terms for your delivery. Devon grunted. Riker was a weasel, but a predictable one. The cargo hold contained 3 crates of unregistered medical nanites, technically legal, but without the Federation tax stamps that would triple their price. Easy job, decent pay, minimal risk. Just the way he liked it these days. The Wanderer slid into one of Kilo 9's docking bays with a metallic groan that made Devon wince. The ship needed repairs, but repairs meant credits, and credits meant more jobs like this one. He pulled on his worn leather jacket, checked the charge on his sidearm, and headed for the airlock. Kilo 9 assaulted the senses. The recycled air tasted of too many species breathing it for too long. Merchants hawked their wares from cluttered stalls while holographic advertisements flickered overhead, promising everything from companionship to salvation. Devon navigated the crowd with practiced ease, keeping his eyes down and his hand close to his weapon. Riker's establishment, calling it a bar would be generous, was tucked into a corner of the station's lower level. As Devon pushed through the entrance, the usual mix of outcasts and opportunists barely glanced his way. Only the bartender, a hulking four-armed Taurian, gave him a nod of recognition. He's in the back, the Taurian rumbled, wiping a glass with one hand while mixing a toxic-looking drink with another. Devon nodded and headed for the private booths at the rear. He was halfway there when the commotion started, shouts, the crash of furniture, a high-pitched whine that might have been a weapon powering up. He instinctively ducked behind a column, hand on his blaster. 3 figures in the distinctive black armor of Dominion bounty hunters were advancing on a slender hooded figure cornered against the wall. The other patrons scattered, suddenly finding urgent business elsewhere. Nowhere left to run, traitor, the lead hunter snarled. The Dominion pays well for Etherians who forget their loyalty. Devon cursed under his breath. The Etherian Dominion rarely ventured this far into neutral territory. Whatever they were hunting must be valuable, or dangerous. Neither possibility was good for bystanders. The hooded figure straightened, hands emerging from the folds of the dark cloak. Slender fingers with an iridescent shimmer, definitely Etherian. But when she spoke, her voice lacked the characteristic harmonic resonance of her species. I'm just passing through, she said softly. This doesn't need to escalate. The lead hunter laughed, the sound distorted by his helmet's vocoder. Orders are to bring you back alive, but they didn't specify undamaged. Devon knew he should walk away. The smart play was to fade back, find Riker, complete his transaction, and get off this station before things got messy. He'd learned the hard way that heroics were for fools and the dead. And yet. His blaster was in his hand before he'd consciously decided to intervene. Hey, he called out. Station security protocols prohibit Dominion jurisdiction in neutral trade zones. The bounty hunters turned, weapons swiveling toward the new threat. Devon kept his voice casual, his posture relaxed, while his mind calculated angles and cover options. "Walk away, human," the leader said. "This isn't your concern." "Actually, it is," Devon replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You're interrupting my drinking time, and that makes me cranky." The first shot came from the hunter on the left, a rookie mistake. Devon was already moving, diving behind an overturned table as energy bolts scorched the air where he'd been standing. He returned fire, catching the shooter in the knee joint of his armor. The bounty hunter went down with a howl. The hooded Etherean wasn't idle. In a fluid motion that seemed almost choreographed, she swept the legs from under the second hunter and slammed something against his helmet, some kind of localized EMP device. The hunter's systems fizzled and he dropped like a stone. The leader, smarter than his companions, had taken cover and was calling for backup. Devon caught the Etherean's eye across the chaos of the room and jerked his head toward the back exit. She hesitated, then nodded once. "Cover me," Devon mouthed, then broke from his position, laying down suppressive fire as he darted toward the exit. The Etherean moved with uncanny grace, seeming to flow between obstacles rather than navigate them. They burst into the maintenance corridor behind the bar, alarms blaring behind them. "This way," Devon said, taking the lead down the narrow passage. "Docking Bay 37. "Why are you helping me?" the Etherean asked, keeping pace easily. "I ask myself the same question," Devon muttered. "Let's just say I dislike the Dominion slightly more than I dislike getting shot at." The station was going into lockdown, standard procedure during security incidents. They had maybe 5 minutes before all ships would be grounded. "Morgan, prep for emergency departure," Devon said into his comlink as they ran. "Departure protocols initiated," came the AI's voice. "May I point out that you have not completed your transaction with Riker?" "Not now, Morgan." They reached the Wanderer with 90 seconds to spare. The airlock had barely sealed behind them when Devon was throwing himself into the pilot's seat, fingers flying over the controls. "Hold on to something," he advised his unexpected passenger as the ship's engines roared to life. The docking clamps released with a metallic shriek of protest, and the Wanderer shot out of the bay with less finesse than safety protocols recommended. 3 Dominion pursuit craft were launching from the other side of the station. Devon swore creatively in 3 languages. "Can you outrun them?" the Etherean asked, gripping the edge of the console. "Maybe. If the hyperdrive cooperates and doesn't blow us into component atoms." Devon banked hard around the station's comm array, buying precious seconds. "You want to tell me why the Dominion wants you badly enough to violate neutral territory?" The hood fell back as they hit a patch of turbulence, revealing features that stopped Devon's next question in his throat. She was definitely Etherean, the luminescent patterns beneath her skin were unmistakable, but her face was leaner, her eyes a startling violet rather than the typical silver. And the markings on her temples. "You're from the Ascendancy," he said, recognition dawning. The Ascendancy was the Etherean aristocracy, the ruling caste that directed the Dominion's expansion through the galaxy. "What's your name?" "Nyx," she replied after a moment's hesitation. "And yes, I was Ascendancy. Now I'm a traitor with a price on my head, as you've noticed." A warning alarm blared as one of the pursuit crafts got a target lock. Devon cursed and sent the Wanderer into a spiraling dive that made the hull creak ominously. "Morgan, can we jump?" "Hyperdrive at 78% charge. Minimum safe threshold is 80%. "Close enough," Devon muttered, punching in blind coordinates. "That is inadvisable," Morgan stated flatly. "Probability of drive failure." "Just do it." Devon and Nyx shouted in unison. The stars stretched into streaks of light as the hyperdrive engaged with a worrying shudder. The pursuing ships fell away, unable to match the Wanderer's desperate leap. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. Devon ran system checks while Nyx stared out at the swirling chaos of hyperspace. "Thank you," she finally said. "I wouldn't have escaped without your intervention." Devon grunted. "Don't thank me yet. I just torched a profitable delivery and made enemies of Dominion bounty hunters. This day keeps getting better. He swiveled his chair to face her. So what did you do? Steal state secrets? Assassinate a rival? Wear last season's fashion to an ascendancy gala? Her expression darkened. I discovered something they wanted kept hidden. About the war. Devon's casual demeanor evaporated. Which war? The Vega campaign. What your people call the purge of Vega Prime. The temperature in the cockpit seemed to drop 10 degrees. Devon's left hand clenched involuntarily, knuckles white. Vega Prime had been his home world. The Dominion had claimed it was harboring rebel forces. The resulting pacification had left the planet a scorched ruin, billions dead. Even if you hate me. She began, her voice barely above a whisper, pain etched in every syllable. But Devon silenced her with a smile, not warm, not friendly, but grimly determined. A predator's smile. Hate you, he said softly. Lady, if you've got dirt on the bastards who destroyed my home, you just became my new best friend. The Wanderer continued its uncertain journey through hyperspace, carrying two unlikely allies bound by secrets that could reshape the stars themselves. The price of redemption. The Wanderer dropped out of hyperspace with a concerning rattle, emerging in the shadow of a gas giant whose swirling storms painted the cockpit in amber and crimson. Devon's hands flew over the controls, stabilizing their descent toward one of the planet's moons, a desolate rock pockmarked with ancient impact craters and hidden from most navigational charts. Welcome to nowhere, he said, guiding the ship into a narrow canyon. Former mining outpost, abandoned after the market crashed. Now it's home to people who don't want to be found. People like you, Nyx observed, her violet eyes studying him with unnerving intensity. People exactly like me. Devon engaged the landing sequence as they approached what appeared to be a solid rock face. Morgan, transmit access codes. Transmitting, the AI responded. May I remind you that bringing an Etherian ascendant to a human rebel outpost violates at least 7 security protocols. Noted, Devon muttered. The rock face shimmered and dissolved, a sophisticated holographic camouflage, revealing a hangar carved into the moon's surface. Devon guided the Wanderer into the dimly lit space, setting it down with more care than his usual landings. Stay close, he told Nyx as they disembarked. And keep that hood up. Some folks here lost everything to the Dominion. The hangar connected to a network of tunnels and caverns, transformed into a makeshift settlement. Scavenged equipment and repurposed mining tech created a haphazard infrastructure that somehow worked despite its chaotic appearance. People moved with purpose, repairing equipment, trading goods, living their lives in defiance of the powers that had driven them to the edges of known space. Reeves. A booming voice echoed through the chamber. A mountain of a man with a mechanical right arm and a wild mane of gray-streaked hair strode toward them. Thought you were making a delivery to Kilo 9. Change of plans, Hammett, Devon replied, clasping the man's flesh hand. Commander Vincent Hammett, once the pride of the Federation fleet, now unofficial leader of this band of survivors and malcontents. Ran into some complications. Hammett's eyes narrowed at Nyx's cloaked figure. What kind of complications? The kind that might interest you. Devon lowered his voice. Somewhere private would be better. Hammett led them to what had once been an operations center, now serving as his quarters and command post. Maps and tactical displays covered the walls, alongside images of destroyed worlds, including Vega Prime. When the door sealed behind them, Devon nodded to Nyx. She lowered her hood, and Hammett's reaction was immediate. His mechanical arm whirred as combat protocols activated, weapon systems emerging from compartments in the forearm. An ascendant? Have you lost your mind, Reeves? He growled. She has information about Vega, Devon said, stepping between them. About what really happened. Hammett didn't lower his arm. And you believe her? The Ascendancy orchestrated the whole damn war. That's what I believe too, Nyx said, her voice steady despite the weapon trained on her. Until I found evidence otherwise. She reached slowly into her cloak and withdrew a data crystal that pulsed with an inner light. This contains classified communications between the Dominion High Command and another party, communications that preceded the war by months. They were planning it together. What other party? Hammett demanded. Individuals within your own Federation Council. The silence that followed was deafening. Devon felt as though the floor had dropped away beneath him. That's not possible, he finally managed. The purge was engineered, Nix continued, not by the Dominion alone, but by a conspiracy that spanned both governments. They needed a catalyst for expanded military powers, for weapons development programs that would have been politically impossible during peacetime. Hammett's arm lowered slightly. What's your stake in this? Why betray your own kind? A shadow passed over Nix's features. My sister was stationed on one of the orbital platforms above Vega Prime. She was told the planet was harboring bioweapons. She was told the attack was a surgical strike against military targets. Nix's voice caught. 3 billion deaths isn't surgical. When I discovered the truth, I couldn't stay silent. Hammett's arm finally retracted its weapons, though suspicion still lined his weathered face. If what you're saying is true, we're going to need more than just data. We need a direct link to whoever was behind this. The crystal contains a name, Nix said. High Chancellor Octavius. He's the Ascendancy's representative to the peace talks scheduled next month on Proxima Station. Devon exchanged a look with Hammett. If we could get to him. We'd need proof he couldn't deny or destroy, Hammett finished. And we'd need to get off Proxima alive afterward. A sharp alarm cut through their planning. Red emergency lights began pulsing throughout the base. Proximity alert, Hammett snapped, turning to a console. Multiple ships entering the system. His face hardened as he read the signatures. Dominion cruiser. And Federation vessels. They're working together, Devon realized. They tracked us. Nix paled. Not you. Me. My implants, I should have known they'd have backdoor access. Everyone to battle stations. Hammett's voice boomed through the comm system. Evacuation Protocol Theta. This is not a drill. The base erupted into organized chaos as people rushed to designated positions. Hammett turned to Devon. Get her out of here. Take the maintenance tunnels to the secondary hangar. The Phoenix is prepped and ready. The Phoenix? Devon raised an eyebrow. That prototype is more theoretical than functional. It's your only shot at outrunning them, Hammett countered, grabbing weapons from a wall cache. I'll buy you time. Vincent, Devon started. Don't get sentimental on me now, Reeves, Hammett cut him off with a grim smile. Someone has to stay behind to delete the databases. Can't let them know who else is out there. The first impacts rocked the base as orbital bombardment began. Dust sifted from the ceiling as support beams groaned. Go. Hammett ordered. Make them pay for Vega. Devon clasped the older man's shoulder once, then pulled Nix toward the exit. They raced through tunnels already beginning to collapse, the sound of weapons fire echoing from the main hangar. They're inside, Devon said grimly, checking the charge on his blaster. The tunnels fork ahead. If we get separated, keep going left until you reach a red hatch. The code is 7794. I'm not getting separated from you, Nix replied, drawing her own weapon, a sleek Etherian pulse pistol. I didn't come this far to die in a tunnel. They reached the fort just as a squad of Dominion troopers appeared behind them. Devon shoved Nix down a side passage as energy bolts scorched the wall where they'd been standing. He returned fire, triggering a cave-in that temporarily blocked pursuit. When they finally reached the secondary hangar, both were breathing hard. The Phoenix sat in the center of the small chamber, a sleek, predatory ship that looked like it had been built for speed rather than comfort or durability. Hammett wasn't kidding about theoretical, Devon muttered as they boarded. The interior was stripped down to essentials, with a cockpit that seemed to have been designed by someone with more optimism than engineering sense. The ship's systems came online with a thrum that vibrated through the deck plates. Devon's hands danced over unfamiliar controls, piecing together the launch sequence through intuition and experience. "Can you fly this?" Nix asked as another explosion rocked the base. "We're about to find out," Devon replied, engaging thrusters. The Phoenix shot from the hangar like a bullet, acceleration pushing them back into their seats with bruising force. Outside, the sky was lit with the flashes of orbital combat as the outpost's few defensive ships engaged the invaders in a desperate holding action. A Dominion fighter detached from the main group, vectoring toward them with single-minded purpose. "They've spotted us," Nix warned. Devon jinked the Phoenix through a series of evasive maneuvers that the ship handled with surprising agility. "This thing can move," he said with grudging admiration. "Multiple pursuit craft incoming," the ship's basic AI reported in a voice that sounded eerily like Morgan's bored drawl. "Of course there are," Devon muttered. He banked hard around the moon's curvature, using its mass to break target locks. "We need a plan beyond, don't die." Nick studied the navigational display. "Proxima Station. We go directly to the peace talks." "Are you insane?" "That's the last place." "It's the only place," she interrupted. "Both governments will have representatives there. Media. Witnesses. If we bring the evidence there, they can't simply disappear us without questions." A pursuing craft exploded as its weapons overheated during a high G turn, a small respite. "That's a suicide run," Devon argued. "Maybe," Nix acknowledged. "But the alternative is definitely death. At least this way, we die for something." Devon's jaw clenched as he considered their options, or lack thereof. "Proxima it is," he finally decided, punching coordinates into the NAV system. "The hyperdrive on this thing better work." Calculating jump, the AI intoned. "Warning, pursuing vessels within weapons range." The Phoenix shuddered as something struck its rear shields. Alarms blared throughout the cockpit. "Shields at 60%, the AI reported with infuriating calm. "Just like old times," Devon said through gritted teeth, pushing the engines beyond recommended parameters. "Hold on." The stars stretched and blurred as the hyperdrive engaged, catapulting them away from their pursuers. The Phoenix trembled around them, systems straining to maintain integrity. When they finally emerged in normal space, proximity to Proxima Station, the ship was limping. Smoke curled from damaged panels, and half the instrument displays flickered erratically. "We made it," Nick said, disbelief coloring her voice. "Not yet," Devon replied, nodding toward the station's defense grid powering up. "They know we're coming. This is Phoenix," he broadcast on an open channel, requesting emergency docking on humanitarian grounds. "We have evidence of critical importance to the peace negotiations." Silence answered them. "They're jamming us," Nix realized. "They won't let us get close enough to be heard." Devon studied the approaching security vessels with a tactician's eye. "There's a maintenance dock on the station's underside. Used for supply deliveries. Less guarded. Can we reach it?" "If I fly like I've never flown before," he replied, hands steady on the controls. "And if you're ready to run the moment we dock." Nix checked her weapon. "I've been running my whole life, it seems. One more sprint won't kill me." "Don't jinx us," Devon said with a grim smile, then sent the Phoenix into a stomach-churning dive that seemed like certain suicide to any observers, until he pulled up at the last second, skimming along the station's outer hull at speeds that made the Phoenix's damaged frame shriek in protest. They hit the maintenance dock hard, the landing more controlled crash than proper docking procedure. Sparks showered around them as emergency systems engaged, sealing the breach their unconventional arrival had created. "Move!" Devon shouted, grabbing the data crystal and pulling Nix from her seat. They burst onto the station just as security alarms began to wail. Devon's knowledge of standard station layouts guided them through service corridors and maintenance shafts, evading the first responders rushing toward their crash site. The main chamber is 2 levels up, Nick said, consulting a station map on a wall terminal. The peace delegation is in session now. Then that's where we're going. Devon checked his weapons charge, almost depleted. One good firefight and it would be useless. They fought their way upward through the station, leaving a trail of disabled security systems and stunned guards in their wake. Neither wanted to cause casualties that would undermine their message. When they finally reached the antechamber to the main hall, they found it guarded by both Federation and Dominion forces, natural enemies standing side by side in unsettling harmony. Together they're too many, Devon said, assessing their opposition. We need a diversion. Nix looked at him, a decision forming in her eyes. I'll go. They want me more than you. It'll draw their attention while you get the crystal to the delegates. No. That's not happening, Devon said firmly. It's the logical choice, she argued. My testimony means nothing without proof, but that crystal with the right audience changes everything. We go together, Devon insisted. I'm not losing another. He stopped, the weight of unspoken words hanging between them. Something shifted in Nix's expression. Even if you hate what I am, she began softly, what my people did to yours. But he silenced her with a smile, not grim this time, but genuine, tinged with a vulnerability she hadn't seen before. I don't hate you, Nix, he said simply. Maybe I should, but I don't. And we're finishing this together. Understanding passed between them, forged in the crucible of their shared journey. Together, then, she agreed. But we'll need more than courage to get through those guards. Devon's eyes narrowed as he spotted a maintenance panel near the ceiling. I have an idea. How do you feel about making an entrance? Moments later, the peace delegation's proceedings were interrupted by a thunderous crash as 2 figures dropped from an air duct directly onto the central table, scattering diplomatic papers and appending water carafes. High Chancellor Octavius, Devon announced, his voice ringing through the suddenly silent chamber as he pointed to an elderly Etherian whose luminescent patterns pulsed with shock and rage. You stand accused of crimes against both our peoples. Chaos erupted as security forces poured in, but by then it was too late. Nix had already inserted the data crystal into the chamber's central display system, and the damning evidence began to play for all to see. As guards surrounded them, weapons raised, Devon met Nix's eyes across the table. Whatever came next, imprisonment, trial, possibly execution, the truth was out. The price of redemption had been paid. And in that moment, surrounded by enemies, they both smiled.